Hey, lovers of great stories! Today I'm going to take you on a journey through the incredible and often surprising life of Amos, a simple man who became one of the most striking prophets in biblical history. Get ready, because this isn't the story of a famous warrior or a powerful king, but of someone who started out in the fields, tending flocks and harvesting figs, and ended up shaking an entire nation. Picture this: the scorching sun blazing over the hills of Tekoa, a small village a few miles from Jerusalem. Amos is there, calloused hands, sunburned skin from the daily work, caring for the sheep and trimming the sycamore trees. No one would look at him and think, this guy is going to be a prophet who will confront kings and shake a whole people. But that's exactly where the most impressive stories often begin, in the most unlikely places. One day, while following his routine in the field, Amos feels a different kind of calling. It wasn't an invitation to greatness by human standards, but a direct mission from God. Without having gone to schools of prophets, without a priestly lineage, he receives a mission: go to Israel, the northern kingdom, and announce hard messages. And let's be honest, no one likes to be the bearer of bad news, but that's exactly what he had to do. Now imagine, a simple man from the countryside, heading to the wealthy, trade-filled cities of Israel, where people lived in a false sense of security. The kingdom was prosperous, the religious festivals were in full swing, the temples full of people. But behind the appearances, there was injustice, corruption, idolatry, and exploitation of the poor. Amos arrives there like an arrow straight to the heart of that nation's pride. He doesn't come with soft words. On the contrary, his messages were as sharp as a sword. He denounces the dishonest merchants, the corrupt judges, the rich living in luxury while the poor suffered. He says, you are confident in your altars, in your wealth, but if there is no repentance, God's justice will come down on you. And do you think that was easy? Not at all. The high priest Amaziah, who was there at the sanctuary in Bethel, tried to silence Amos, told him to go back to his land, keep tending his sheep, and stay quiet. But Amos was not intimidated. He was not a prophet by profession, he didn't live off of it. He was a prophet because God had called him, and that was stronger than any threat. He used everyday images to speak to the people. He compared injustice to a crooked wall ready to collapse, showed visions of swarms of locusts, a consuming fire, a basket of ripe fruit, all symbolizing that time was running out. These weren't words to please, they were alarms to wake up a people who thought they were untouchable. But here's the most interesting part: amid all those harsh words, Amos also reveals the heart of God. He speaks of God's desire for justice, for righteousness, for a people who live uprightly. One of his most famous lines still echoes today: let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. It's like he was saying, it's no use singing religious songs and bringing offerings if your heart is far from God and close to corruption. Amos didn't perform spectacular miracles, didn't lead armies, didn't build palaces. But the words he left behind crossed centuries, because they were true, raw, and came straight from God's heart to a people who needed to wake up. Now think with me, what makes Amos so iconic? Maybe it's exactly this: he shows us that God can use anyone, even the simplest person, for great missions. He reminds us that speaking the truth will not always earn us applause, but it is necessary. And he challenges us today: is our society really that different from the one he denounced? Do we still turn a blind eye to injustice while trying to look religious? In the end, Amos's message isn't just about judgment. It's also about hope, because God calls people to repentance, and there is always a chance for change when there is humility. That is his legacy, a shepherd who became God's voice to an entire nation. So, what do you think of this story? Had you ever heard about Amos in so much detail? Would you have the courage to speak uncomfortable truths like he did, even knowing you could be rejected? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the life of one of the most surprising prophets in the Bible, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next stories, and share this with someone who needs to remember that God can use anyone, even a simple shepherd, to change an entire story.